The Debt Collector. Welcome to Fallen Hearts Chronicles. Welcome to Fallen Hearts Chronicles. Before we dive into today's epic tale of forgotten promises and dangerous debts, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more heart-pounding romance stories every week. Your support keeps these stories coming. The rogue who once was royalty. The rain fell like needles on the tin roof of the shabby cottage. Princess Mira Ashford, though she hadn't used that title in 5 years, wiped the blood from her hunting knife and stared at the dead rabbit on her table. This was her life now. No crown, no castle, no loyal guards. Just survival in the forgotten edges of the borderlands, where exiled wolves went to disappear. She was 23 years old and already felt ancient. Her hands, once soft and decorated with royal rings, were now calloused and scarred. Her hair, once brushed by servants until it shone like copper fire, was tied back in a rough braid. She wore leather and wool, not silk and jewels. But she was alive, and that was more than most exiled royals could say. The Ashford kingdom had thrown her away like trash. Her own brother, Crown Prince Damien, had accused her of treason. The charge was false, but the evidence was manufactured perfectly. She could still remember the cold satisfaction in Damien's eyes as the council stripped her of her title and cast her beyond the borders. A princess without a pack is just a pretty corpse waiting to happen. Her father's advisor had sneered as the guards dragged her to the border. But Mira refused to become a corpse. She learned to hunt, to fight, to survive. She found this village, a cluster of outcasts and rogues who asked no questions. They called her Red because of her hair. They didn't know she was royal. They didn't care. The memory in the rain. As Mira prepared the rabbit for dinner, a memory surfaced unbidden. It always happened when it rained. She was 12 again, running through the forbidden Thornwood Forest, the place where royal children were never supposed to go. She had been rebellious even then. While her tutors droned on about politics and proper behavior, young Mira had slipped away, craving adventure. The forest was dark and ancient, full of twisted trees and whispered warnings. That's where she found him. He was collapsed against a massive oak tree, barely conscious. A boy, maybe 14 or 15, with midnight black hair and skin so pale it looked like death. Blood soaked his shirt from a terrible wound across his ribs. His breathing was shallow, desperate. Mira should have run, should have called the guards. But something in his face stopped her. Even unconscious, he looked fierce, proud, like a young wolf who refused to submit even to death itself. She tore strips from her dress and pressed them against his wound. She had watched her mother, Queen Helena, work with healers enough times to know the basics. Stop the bleeding. Clean the wound. Keep him warm. Don't die, she whispered to the unconscious boy. Please don't die. His eyes fluttered open. They were the most unusual color she had ever seen. Silver gray, like storm clouds before lightning. They focused on her with surprising intensity for someone so close to death. Who? He gasped. Who are you? Mira, she said. I'm Mira. You're hurt. Don't try to move. Soldiers, he choked out. They'll find me. You should run. I'm not running, Mira said firmly. She was 12 and stubborn and had no idea how dangerous the situation truly was. She stayed with him for hours, hidden in the hollow of that oak tree. She gave him water from her canteen. She talked to him to keep him conscious, telling him silly stories about her boring lessons and her annoying brother. As the sun began to set, his breathing steadied. The bleeding stopped. He would live. Why? He asked, his silver eyes searching her face. Why help me? Because you needed help, Mira said simply. That's what decent people do. He laughed, a bitter sound from someone so young. Decent people don't exist where I come from. Where's that? A place called Shadows and Broken Promises, he said. He tried to sit up, wincing. I have to go. If they find me here with you, will you be okay? Mira asked, genuinely worried. The boy looked at her for a long moment. Then, with great effort, he took her hand. His grip was surprisingly strong. I am Kale, he said formally, as if making a sacred vow. And I swear to you, Mira, I will repay this debt. One day, when I have the power, I will find you. And I will give you anything you ask for. This is my blood oath. Young Mira didn't understand the weight of those words. She just smiled. You don't owe me anything. Just stay alive. Okay? He nodded, released her hand, and disappeared into the darkening forest like smoke. Mira never told anyone about the boy in the woods. Within a week, she'd convinced herself it was just a strange dream, the village under threat. A sharp knock yanked Mira from her memories. She grabbed her knife instinctively. Visitors after dark meant trouble. Red, open up. It was old Thomas, the village elder. His voice carried panic. Mira opened the door. Thomas stood there, soaking wet, his weathered face tight with fear. Behind him, other villagers were emerging from their homes, all looking toward the south road. What's happening? Mira demanded. Army, Thomas said, coming up the south road. Not border patrol. Real soldiers. Hundreds of them. Mira's blood went cold. Had Damien finally decided to eliminate her permanently? But why send an army to a forgotten rogue village? We need to evacuate, Mira said, her mind racing. Get everyone to the northern caves. If they're looking for someone, maybe they'll leave once they don't find. They're not looking for someone, Thomas interrupted. They're escorting someone. A king. What king? The Ashford kingdom doesn't. Not Ashford, Thomas said, his voice dropping. The Shadow King. Lord Kale of the Obsidian Throne. The name hit Mira like a physical blow. Kale. After 11 years, that name still lived somewhere in her memory, though she'd buried it deep. That's impossible, Mira whispered. The Shadow Kingdom is just a legend, a story to scare children. It's real, Thomas said grimly, and he's coming here. His messenger said he seeks an audience with the red-haired woman who lives among rogues. Red, I think he means you. The Shadow King arrives. The army that entered the village an hour later was unlike anything Mira had ever seen. These weren't regular soldiers. They moved like shadows, silent and precise, dressed in black armor that seemed to absorb the moonlight. They carried weapons that looked ancient and deadly. At the center of the formation, riding a massive black horse, was their king. Mira stood in the village square, refusing to hide. If this was about her, she wouldn't let her neighbors suffer. The other villagers had withdrawn to their homes, peering fearfully through windows. As the rider approached, Mira's heart hammered against her ribs. She told herself it couldn't be the same person. That boy had been wounded and desperate. This was a king commanding an army. But when he dismounted and walked toward her, she knew. He was tall now, powerfully built, with broad shoulders and a warrior's bearing. His black hair was longer, pulled back from a face that had hardened into sharp, handsome angles. He wore a long coat of black leather over armor that looked forged from midnight itself. At his hip hung a sword that hummed with barely contained power. But his eyes, those silver-gray eyes, were exactly the same. Mira Ashford, he said, his voice deeper than she remembered but carrying that same intensity. It's been a long time. She forced herself to stay calm. I don't use that name anymore, and I don't know what you want, but this village has nothing to do with. I know exactly what you are, Kale interrupted, stepping closer. An exiled princess living among rogues, hunted by your own family, hiding from a world that betrayed you. He smiled, but it wasn't warm. I know everything about you, Mira. I've known where you were for 3 years. I was just waiting for the right time. The right time for what? Mira demanded, her hand moving to the knife at her belt. To collect my debt. The impossible demand. Kale's army formed a perimeter around the village square. Not threatening, but unmistakably present. There would be no escape, no negotiation. This was a king making a declaration, not a request. You saved my life once, Kale said, his voice carrying across the square. In the Thornwood Forest, when I was nothing, when I was dying. You showed me mercy when no one else in this cursed world ever had. That was a lifetime ago, Mira said. I was a child. You were a child. Whatever you think you owe me. I swore a blood oath. Kale cut her off. His silver eyes blazed with something fierce and unreadable. I said I would repay the debt when I had power. Well, Mira Ashford, I have power now. I am king of the Obsidian Throne. I command the Shadow Realm, the largest kingdom on the continent. I have wealth beyond measure, armies that make other kings tremble, and magic that could reshape the world. He stopped directly in front of her, so close she could see the old scar on his ribs beneath his partially open shirt. The scar she had helped heal. And I am here to fulfill my oath, he said quietly. I will give you anything you desire. Name it and it's yours. A kingdom? Done. Revenge against your brother? I'll deliver his head on a silver platter. Gold? Power? Freedom? Simply speak the words. Mira stared at him, her mind reeling. This was insane. I don't want anything from you. I just want to be left alone. Kale's expression didn't change. That's not how blood oaths work. Until the debt is paid, it binds us both. Cannot move forward. My kingdom cannot move forward. You must accept payment or... He paused, and for the first time, she saw something dark and desperate flash across his face. Or we both suffer the consequences. What consequences? This is ridiculous. I helped a wounded boy. That's not some magical contract. In my world, it is, Kale said softly. And whether you remember or not, you are part of that world now. You touched someone bound by ancient magic. You saved someone who carries a curse older than kingdoms. That single act of mercy 11 years ago tied your fate to mine. The truth behind the debt. One of Kale's commanders, a stern woman with silver streaks in her dark hair, stepped forward. She carried a leather-bound book that looked ancient and ominous. My king, perhaps the lady requires proof, the commander said. Kale nodded. Show her, Commander Sarah. Sarah opened the book, and Mira gasped. The pages glowed with a faint silver light. Written across them in script that seemed to move and shift was a contract she didn't remember signing. But there, in childish handwriting that was unmistakably hers, were the words. Mira Ashford helped Kale. He is alive because of her. What is this? Mira whispered. The Chronicle of Debts, Kale said. Every blood oath made by those of the Shadow Realm is recorded here. When I swore to repay you, the magic sealed it. Look at the date. Mira looked. 11 years ago, the exact night she found him in the forest. This still doesn't mean. Look at the bottom of the page, Kale insisted. She did. Her breath caught in her throat. Written in blood-red script were the words, debt unpaid. Time remaining, 47 days. Penalty, death of both parties. 47 days, Kale said quietly. That's how long we both have to live unless you accept payment for the debt. The magic doesn't care about logic or fairness. It only cares about balance. You saved my life. I must give you something of equal value, or we both die. Mira felt the world tilting. This couldn't be real. Magic, blood oaths, ancient curses. These were stories, legends, not reality. But the book glowed with impossible light. And Kale's eyes held no deception, only grim certainty. So what are you saying? Mira asked, her voice barely audible. That I have to accept some gift from you, or we both just die? Yes. And if I ask for something simple? Gold? A house somewhere? Kale's jaw tightened. The debt must be equivalent. You saved the life of a king. You preserved the heir to the Shadow Throne. Anything less than a kingdom-level payment will not satisfy the magic. The trap became clear. She had to accept something enormous, something that would change her entire life, or they would both die. There's a third option, Kale said, his voice dropping so only she could hear. The only payment that truly equals a life saved is another life given. Myra's eyes widened. What are you saying? Come with me, Kale said simply. Become part of my kingdom, not as a servant or a trophy, but as, he seemed to struggle with the words, as my queen. Give me your life freely. as I would have given you mine. That satisfies the debt. 2 lives equally bound. You're insane, Mira breathed. You want me to marry you? We don't even know each other. I know you, Kale said, and there was something raw in his voice. I've watched you for 3 years, Mira. I've seen how you protect this village, how you hunt to feed others before yourself, how you taught the children to read even though you barely have enough for your own survival. I know your heart, even if you don't know mine. That's not knowing someone, Mira said, anger rising. That's stalking. A ghost of a smile crossed his face. Perhaps, but it's also the truth. And the truth is, we have 47 days. You can spend them fighting this, hating me, refusing the debt. But on the 48th day, we both die. Or, he extended his hand. You can take a chance on the boy you saved once. The boy who never forgot your kindness. The king who would give you everything. The impossible choice. Mira looked at his outstretched hand. She looked at the glowing book. She looked at her village, her safe haven, knowing that if she refused and died, these people would be vulnerable to whatever came next. And if I come with you, she said slowly, what happens to my village? They become protected territory of the Shadow Realm, Kale said immediately. No army will touch them. They'll have food, medicine, and security. I give you my word. Your word? I don't even know if I can trust you. You trusted me once, Kale said softly, when I was bleeding and helpless, when I had nothing to offer but a desperate promise. Trust me again, Mira. Let me prove that the boy you saved grew into a man who keeps his oaths. The rain had stopped. The moon broke through the clouds, casting silver light across the square. Kale's hand remained extended, steady and sure. Mira thought about her brother Damien, who had betrayed her, about the kingdom that had exiled her, about 5 years of barely surviving, always looking over her shoulder, always waiting for the knife in the dark. Maybe this was insane. Maybe this was a trap. But maybe, just maybe, it was also a way forward. A strange, impossible, magical way forward. 47 days, Mira said. If I come with you, I want 47 days to see your kingdom, to understand what this means. No marriage, no binding until I'm sure. Can your magic accept that? Kale consulted with Commander Sarah, who examined the book. The debt can be suspended, Sarah said carefully. If the debtor enters the kingdom willingly and begins the process of repayment, it gives some flexibility. Then that's my condition, Mira said. I'll come with you. I'll give you 47 days. But I make no promises beyond that. Kale's silver eyes studied her face. Then slowly he nodded. 47 days. I can work with that. He lowered his hand, not taking hers. We leave at dawn. Pack what matters. Say your goodbyes. As he turned to walk away, Mira called out, Kale? He stopped, looking back. Why me? Really? You're a king. You could have any woman. Why hold on to a debt from a 12-year-old girl? For the first time, something vulnerable crossed his hardened face. Because in my entire life, only one person ever saw me dying and chose to stay. Only one person ever helped me expecting nothing in return. Only one person ever showed me that kindness without cruelty could exist. He paused, his voice dropping. You showed me light when all I knew was darkness, Mira Ashford. And I've been trying to find my way back to that light ever since. Then he walked away, leaving Mira standing in the moonlight, her entire world turned upside down by a promise made 11 years ago by a boy who became a king. To be continued. What will happen when Mira enters the Shadow Kingdom? What secrets is Kale hiding behind his powerful throne? And what dangerous enemies await the exiled princess in a realm built on darkness and ancient magic? Find out in Part 2, The Palace of Shadows. If you're hooked on this story, smash that like button, drop a comment telling us what you think will happen next, and subscribe to Fallen Hearts Chronicles for more epic romance and adventure. And you won't want to miss what happens when Mira discovers the true curse binding the Shadow King. The journey to the Shadow Kingdom took 6 days. 6 days of traveling through lands Mira had only heard about in whispered legends. They crossed the Vale Mountains, where the air grew thin and cold, and descended into valleys where the sun seemed to shine differently. Paler, weaker, as if the light itself was afraid to fully penetrate this realm. Kale rode at the front of the column, always distant, always watching the horizon. He hadn't spoken to Mira since they left her village. Commander Sarah had been assigned as her escort, a stern woman who answered questions with short, clipped sentences. "Why is it called the Shadow Kingdom?" Mira asked on the third day as they passed through a forest where the trees grew black as coal. "Because darkness found a home here long before King Kale took the throne," Sarah replied. "This land was cursed centuries ago by a war between ancient powers. Most kingdoms avoid it. We survive in it. And Kale rules all of this?" Sarah's expression softened slightly. "He doesn't just rule it. He holds it together. Without him, this entire realm would collapse into chaos." She glanced at Mira. "That's why the debt matters so much. His life isn't just his own. Thousands depend on him." Mira felt the weight of those words. She had saved one boy, not realizing she had saved an entire kingdom. On the sixth day, they crested a final hill and Mira saw it. The Obsidian Palace. The Palace of Living Shadows. The palace rose from the earth like a dark crystal, all black stone and sharp towers that pierced the gray sky. It wasn't built. It looked grown, as if the mountain itself had been carved and shaped by some ancient, terrible power. Shadows moved across its walls even though the sun was high, creating the illusion that the entire structure was breathing. "It's beautiful," Mira whispered, surprising herself. It was beautiful in a dangerous, deadly way, like a blade or a winter storm. "It's dying," Kale said. Mira jumped. She hadn't heard him ride up beside her. His silver eyes were fixed on the palace, and for the first time, she saw genuine pain in them. "What do you mean, dying?" Mira asked. "You'll see soon enough." He spurred his horse forward. "Welcome to your new home, princess. Try not to get lost. People who wander the wrong corridors tend to disappear." He said it like a joke, but Mira noticed Sarah didn't laugh. The throne room of dying magic. The interior of the palace was even stranger than the exterior. The walls were smooth black stone that seemed to pulse with faint light. Torches burned with silver fire that gave no heat. And everywhere, absolutely everywhere, were shadows that moved independently of any light source. Mira reached out to touch one, and it slithered away from her hand like a living thing. "Don't touch the shadows," Sarah warned. "They're not decorative. They're remnants of the curse. Some are harmless. Others aren't." They walked through corridors that seemed to shift and change. Mira tried to memorize the route but gave up after the fifth turn. This place was a maze and an intentional one. Finally, they reached a massive set of double doors. Two guards, both wearing armor that looked like solidified shadow, pushed them open. The throne room took Myra's breath away. It was enormous, with a ceiling so high it disappeared into darkness. The floor was polished black stone that reflected like still water. And at the far end, on a raised platform, sat the obsidian throne itself. The throne was carved from a single piece of black crystal. It was beautiful and terrible, covered in intricate patterns that hurt to look at directly. But something was wrong with it. Cracks ran through the crystal, glowing with a sick red light, and the shadows around it writhed and twisted as if in pain. Kale stood before the throne but didn't sit on it. He looked at it the way someone might look at a dying friend. "This is what I haven't told you," Kale said, his voice echoing in the vast chamber. "This is the real reason I needed to fulfill the blood oath." Mira walked closer, her footsteps echoing. "I don't understand." Kale turned to face her, and she saw the exhaustion etched into every line of his face. "The Shadow Kingdom's power comes from this throne, and the throne's power comes from the king who sits on it. For 300 years, the throne has chosen rulers who could bear the curse, who could hold the shadows at bay and keep this realm stable." He gestured to the cracks. "But the throne is dying, Mira. It's been dying since the day I took it 5 years ago. Every day more cracks appear. Every day the shadows grow harder to control. My advisors say I have maybe a year before the throne shatters completely. When that happens, the curse that's been contained for 3 centuries will be released, and it will consume everything. Not just this kingdom, but every realm it touches. Mira felt cold. What does this have to do with the blood debt? Everything, Kale said quietly. The blood debt is bound by ancient magic, the same magic that created this throne. When you saved my life, you created a connection between us. A bond of pure, uncorrupted power. That bond is the only thing that's been keeping me alive long enough to search for a solution. He took a step toward her. But the magic demands balance. I can't take without giving. I can't survive on borrowed power without repaying the debt. If I die, the throne dies. If the throne dies, millions die. So I'm not just saving you, Mira said slowly, understanding dawning. I'm saving everyone in this kingdom. Yes. Kale's silver eyes held hers. And I'm sorry. I'm sorry that helping a wounded boy in the forest 11 years ago chained you to a dying king and a cursed throne. I'm sorry that your kindness has become your burden, the cord of knives. Before Mira could respond, the doors to the throne room burst open. A group of elaborately dressed nobles swept in, led by a woman who looked like she'd been carved from ice and cruelty. She was tall and elegant, with platinum blonde hair and cold blue eyes. She wore a gown of silver and black that probably cost more than Myra's entire village had seen in a year. And she looked at Mira the way someone might look at an insect they were about to crush. So this is the legendary savior, the woman said, her voice dripping with disdain. The peasant girl who's supposed to save our kingdom. How disappointing. Lady Seraphine, Kale said, his voice hardening. You weren't summoned. No, but I came anyway. Seraphine glided forward, circling Mira like a predator. We needed to see what kind of woman our king traded his dignity for. And I must say, I expected someone more impressive. Seraphine is the head of the noble council, Sarah whispered to Mira. She's also been trying to marry Kale for the past 3 years. That explained the hatred radiating from the woman. Tell me, little rogue, Seraphine purred. What exactly do you bring to this kingdom? You're not a warrior. You're not trained in politics. You have no magical ability. You're not even beautiful enough to be a decent trophy wife. The insult stung, but Mira had survived 5 years as an exile. She'd heard worse. I bring something you clearly don't have, Mira said calmly. A heart. Seraphine's perfect face twisted with rage. You dare. Enough. Kale's voice cracked like a whip. The shadows in the room surged toward him, responding to his anger. Seraphine, you overstep. Mira is here under my protection. Any insult to her is an insult to me. An insult. Seraphine laughed, but there was an edge of hysteria to it. You bring this nobody to our palace. You claim she's the solution to our dying kingdom, and we're supposed to bow down and worship her? My king, you've been bewitched. This is the blood debt speaking, not reason. Other nobles behind her murmured agreement. Mira realized this wasn't just one jealous woman. This was a faction, a group of people who saw her as a threat to their power. The blood debt is real, Kale said coldly, and it's the only thing keeping me alive right now. So unless you'd like to watch your king die and your kingdom fall into ruin, I suggest you show respect to the woman who holds my life in her hands. Seraphine's eyes flashed. And what happens when she demands a price we can't pay? What happens when this little exile decides she wants power, wealth, revenge? You've given her leverage over the entire kingdom. She won't, Kale said. How do you know? Seraphine demanded. Kale looked at Mira, and something in his expression made her heart skip. Because I know her, and she's not like us. The Garden of Dying Things. After the confrontation, Sarah led Mira to her chambers. They were luxurious beyond anything Mira had ever seen. A suite of rooms with a canopy bed, a sitting area, and a balcony that overlooked the palace gardens. Get some rest, Sarah advised. Court dinner is in 3 hours. You'll need your strength. But Mira couldn't rest. The weight of everything she'd learned pressed down on her. She was somehow the key to saving a dying kingdom, surrounded by nobles who hated her, bound to a king she barely knew. She walked out onto the balcony and down a set of stairs that led to the gardens. The gardens were beautiful in a haunting way. Black roses grew alongside silver lilies. Trees with dark purple leaves rustled in a wind that carried no scent. And everywhere, those living shadows moved between the plants like dark water. At the center of the garden was a fountain, but the water that flowed from it was black as ink. "It used to run clear," a voice said behind her. Mira turned to find Kale standing there, no longer in his formal armor. He wore simple black clothing that made him look younger, more like the wounded boy she remembered. "When?" Mira asked. "5 years ago, the day I took the throne." He walked to the fountain and trailed his fingers through the dark water. "Everything started dying the day I became king. The throne cracked. The shadows grew restless. Even the water turned black. My advisors said it was because I'm not the rightful heir." "Are you?" Kale's laugh was bitter. "That's complicated. The throne chooses its king based on power and will. I had both. But I also carry a curse of my own, one that predates the throne. When I was dying in that forest 11 years ago, I wasn't just wounded. I was cursed." Mira moved closer. "What kind of curse?" "A death curse," Kale said quietly. "Cast by the people who killed my family. The slow eating away at me piece by piece. The throne's magic has kept it at bay. But now the throne is dying, and so am I. It's a race to see which kills me first, the curse or the shattering throne." He turned to look at her, his silver eyes intense. "That's why the blood debt matters so much, Mira. Your magic, the magic you created when you saved me, is pure, uncorrupted. It's the opposite of everything dark in this kingdom. If I can fully repay the debt, if you accept payment and bind yourself to this realm, your life force could stabilize the throne. Your light could balance my darkness. So I'm not just a person to you," Mira said, feeling something break inside her. "I'm a magical battery, a tool to fix your broken throne." "No." Kale stepped toward her, desperate. "That's not. I didn't mean. Didn't you?" Myra's voice rose. "Be honest with me, Kale. If I wasn't connected to you by this blood debt, if I couldn't save your throne, would you have even looked for me? Or would I still be living in that village, unknown and forgotten? The truth in the darkness." Kale was silent for a long moment. The shadows in the garden swirled around them both, responding to the tension. "I don't know," he finally said, and the honesty in his voice was almost painful. "I'd like to think I would have found you anyway. I'd like to believe that the girl who showed me kindness mattered enough that I would have searched for her just to say thank you." He ran a hand through his dark hair, frustrated. "But the truth is, I'm a king of a dying realm. Every decision I make is calculated. Every move is strategic. I've spent 5 years making impossible choices, sacrificing good people for the greater good, becoming the kind of ruler I swore I'd never be." He looked at her, and his eyes were haunted. "So maybe at first, yes, the blood debt was practical, a solution to a problem. But then I watched you for 3 years, Mira. I saw how you lived, how you gave away your food when children were hungry, how you taught reading to kids whose parents couldn't, how you fought off bandits to protect people who weren't even your pack." His voice dropped, and somewhere in those 3 years, the exiled princess stopped being a debt to collect and became someone I actually cared about, someone I wanted to know, someone who reminded me that once, a long time ago, I believed good people existed. Mira felt tears prick her eyes. "That doesn't make this easier. You're still asking me to give up my life, my freedom, to become part of a world I don't understand." "I know." Kale stepped closer, close enough that she could see the faint scar on his ribs through his open collar. "And if you want to walk away, if you want to refuse the debt and let us both die, I'd understand. Maybe we deserve it. Me for being too calculating, you for being too kind." "Don't say that," Mira whispered. "Don't make me responsible for your death." "You're not responsible," Kale said. "I am. I'm the one who swore the blood oath. I'm the one who built my survival on your kindness. This is my curse, Mira. You just got caught in it. He turned to leave, but Mira grabbed his arm. Wait. He stopped, looking down at where her hand touched his skin. She felt it then. A pulse of power, warm and bright, flowing between them, the blood debt making itself known. I need to understand, Mira said. How exactly does repaying the debt work? What would it mean if I accepted payment? The ritual of binding. Kale led her back into the palace, down corridors that seemed to descend into the heart of the mountain. They reached a chamber that looked ancient, carved from raw stone and covered in symbols that glowed with soft silver light. At the center was a circular platform with 2 places to stand, marked by intricate patterns. This is the Chamber of Oaths, Kale explained, where blood debts are paid and bonds are sealed. If you agree to accept payment, if you agree to become my queen and bind yourself to the Shadow Kingdom, we perform a ritual here. What happens during the ritual? Our life forces merge, Kale said quietly. Not completely, but enough that we share power. Your light stabilizes my darkness. My strength protects your vulnerability. The throne recognizes you as part of its magic, and the cracks stop spreading.